Kevin Stefanski future is pretty much guaranteed, bro. He finna be up out of there. Joe Flacco wasted no time getting it in on his former head coach. Guys, bro, I see why Mike Tomlin said what he said before the game. Because if you guys haven't heard, the Cincinnati Bengals put the beats on the Pittsburgh Steelers, bro. Joe Flacco threw for over 200 yards, no picks. Man, Joe Flacco looked like he could win the MVP quarterback, bro. I ain't lying, bro. He looked like MVP caliber performance, dog. What Joe Flacco did, legendary. I ain't lying. Kevin Stefanski is in the hot seat, man. We got fans pulling up receipts. We got members of the media pretty much saying him and Andrew Berry need to kick rock.
Explosive breaking news emanating from the perpetually dramatic city of Cleveland. Joe Flacco, the improbable comeback grandpa of the NFL, has just unleashed a blistering, nuclear-level tirade directed squarely at head coach Kevin Stefanski and the entirety of the Browns coaching staff. It appears unequivocally that the virtue of patience has been irrevocably expunged from Flacco's playbook. Something profoundly significant within the confines of that locker room has, by all indications, finally snapped. And now the entire football world is collectively pondering a seismic question: did the Browns, through their consistent strategic missteps, finally push the most notoriously unflappable man in professional football beyond his breaking point? Prepare yourselves. This impending meltdown is destined for legendary status.
Here, when did you realize that you could have this successful of an offensive game like this quickly?
You're not thinking about it in that sense. I mean, I think you're always like wanting to go do that, but I think what being here in this situation has done for me is it allows you to recalibrate and not worry about those things. It allows you to just focus on the basics. And it's a good reminder that doing that is what leads to success and consistency. So I think the bigger thing going forward is just continuing to remind myself of that.
Oh, Cleveland, that perpetually captivating land of shattered dreams, agonizingly missed field goals, and a seemingly endless procession of quarterback experiments gone spectacularly awry. A notorious crucible where even the most fervent hope arrives only to invariably perish, yet somehow, in a bizarre twist of fate, manages to sign a perplexing one-year extension. And just when any rational observer might conclude that the inherent chaos within the franchise could not possibly escalate further, Joe Flacco, yes, that Joe Flacco, the stoic veteran, inexplicably rolls back into town and with a sudden explosive fury detonates the entire organization as if it were merely his personal fireworks display. The dramatic irony is, truly, almost poetic.
Could you do that, Andrew? How could you do it? Why on earth did you feel the need to trade this guy to a division opponent for a 5th-round draft pick? Fireable offense. That is a fireable offense. I want to know how much longer the owner's going to watch this crap, because the fans have had it. We deserve better. You're worried more about your stadium than you are your football team. That's the perception, Jimmy.
The Browns, with an almost Sisyphean futility, dedicated years to their desperate search for a messianic savior, ultimately investing an exorbitant $500 million in a quarterback whose performance still often appears perpetually buffering, perpetually incomplete, and then, with a twist of dramatic irony that only Cleveland could orchestrate, the very player they unceremoniously traded away for what amounted to a paltry bag of peanuts makes a triumphant return, rendering the entire front office look like the amateurish junior varsity of NFL decision makers. Because Joe Flacco didn't merely win games after his departure, he, with an almost surgical precision, utterly humiliated the Browns organization without ever even needing to don their ignominious jersey again.
Joe Flacco just exposed Kevin Stefanski, showing us everything wrong with the Browns offense. And after hearing this, it's clear Shedeur Sanders need to be traded. Joe Flacco just exposed Kevin Stefanski and the Cleveland Browns offense. Joe Flacco threw for 342 yards and 3 touchdowns on 47 attempts and 31 completions. Cleveland, did you get rid of Joe too? Cleveland, did you get rid of old Joe too soon? I don't know the best way to explain it, but it seems like every quarterback that leaves Cleveland, if they was in that horrible organization, then they left them, they on a different path to where they about to become a superstar again. In this case, Baker.
He powerfully reminded everyone within the football world that foundational qualities like seasoned experience, an unshakable calmness under duress, and, crucially, a fully functioning cerebral capacity still hold undeniable, paramount importance in the sport. These are vital tenets that Kevin Stefanski and Andrew Barry, it appears, conspicuously overlooked or somehow neglected to include in their meticulously crafted team-building PowerPoint presentation. The man, with an almost nostalgic brilliance, performed like an MVP resurrected from a bygone era. He effortlessly amassed over 200 yards, consistently demonstrated impeccable pocket presence, executed precision passing with surgical accuracy, and exuded the kind of profound, self-assured poise that unequivocally screams, "Remember me, I was definitively elite before you even had the concept of Wi-Fi."
Teammates who've gone through that.
Oh, for sure. That was an awesome sideline, an awesome locker room after the game. But at the same time, you got to give those guys a lot of credit. Like, it's not easy to lose 4 straight games and keep your head into it. So the fact that they've been able to do this and get to the point where we got tonight and beat a good football team is also impressive.
Along those lines, Joe, it's one win, but given the fact that the game against that defense in this environment, you see the potential of this team, especially offensively, is capable of.
Yeah, you sure hope so. You hope you can come in here and play well. And you always want to, like, especially when you get guys that are good at playing football, you want to go show them, like, hey, man, like, we're going to be able to do.
The dude, by all modern NFL standards, is practically a fossilized relic, yet somehow he's out there, defying all expectations, meticulously dissecting opposing defenses with the precision and hunger of someone relentlessly farming XP points in a video game. Meanwhile, back in Cleveland, Stefanski's headset might just as well have been broadcasting an endless loop of insipid elevator music, given the profound lack of discernible strategic adjustments. The Browns' offense, in its agonizing inefficiency, resembled nothing so much as a runaway Roomba, aimlessly spinning, clumsily bumping into impenetrable walls, constantly recalculating, only to spin aimlessly once more. You could plainly discern the raw disbelief etched across the faces of the long-suffering fans. They weren't merely witnessing Flacco's unexpected resurgence and success. They were, with crushing clarity, watching their own franchise's deep-seated incompetence being brutally televised in pristine high definition, and oh, the exquisite irony of it all. Joe Flacco didn't even need to articulate much in the aftermath. He simply stood there, as imperturbably calm as ever, exuding the self-satisfied, almost paternalistic energy of a dad who had explicitly warned everyone not to tamper with the thermostat, only for the entire house to now be engulfed in flames. He even casually alluded to broken plays miraculously morphing into touchdowns, and in that precise moment, one could almost distinctly hear the Browns' entire coaching staff collectively, frantically Googling broken play success rate in a desperate attempt to understand the foreign concept.
You allow these people to do this? You have the worst offense in the league? Your GM screwed this quarterback thing up like I've never seen in my life. I've never seen anything like it. Kids that play Madden could have done a better job. Truly, that's not hyperbole. It's a joke. It's a joke. This franchise has become a joke.
One could almost palpably feel the spectral presence of Browns quarterbacks past, rhythmically clapping in some ethereal realm. Johnny Manziel, Baker Mayfield, even that unfortunate soul who started a single game and subsequently vanished into the NFL's unofficial witness protection program. All of them, ethereal spectators, watching the unfolding farce and collectively thinking, that could have been me if only they had possessed a single coherent clue. And now, with the grim predictability of a recurring nightmare, Stefanski finds himself once again squarely in the searing hot seat. It has become an annual, almost sacred tradition in Cleveland. New year, same profound panic, same beleaguered coach, exhibiting that familiar 1,000-yard stare that silently screams, maybe if I meticulously pretend to be invisible, they'll conveniently shift the blame to the water boy. Fans, having reached their breaking point, are now relentlessly pulling receipts, meticulously cataloging every egregious bad call, every inexplicably wasted drive, every ill-conceived game plan that appeared as if it were haphazardly sketched in crayon. The common sentiment reverberates, even children playing Madden could orchestrate a more competent strategy, and honestly, that assessment is not without merit. At the very least, Madden players possess the fundamental awareness to call vital timeouts. Meanwhile, the Browns front office is being mercilessly roasted as if it were an open mic night at a comedy club. Andrew Berry, the ostensible general manager, has apparently vanished into self-imposed hiding. No press statements, no interviews, absolutely nothing. The man seemingly disappeared faster than a typical Browns playoff lead. The organizational silence is deafening, yet speaks volumes.
Still down there looking like an MVP for the Bucks. And Joe Flacco ain't even left Cleveland for a full 2 weeks, and he already done threw for more yards and touchdowns than he did in Cleveland. Come on now, what's going on? I think Mike Tomlin was right. Maybe Andrew Berry's smarter than all of us. He don't know why the Browns traded Joe Flacco, a veteran, to a division rival that they gotta play again, and Mike Tomlin knew they gonna have to play Cincinnati against Joe Flacco. But Joe still didn't know the plays, and he beat a Steelers team that demolished the Cleveland with Dillon Gabriel.
The long-suffering fans are collectively gazing around, their expressions etched with a profound incredulity, silently questioning, did we, in a staggering act of self-sabotage, just trade away the only quarterback who genuinely knows what he's doing? And this brewing controversy transcends the mere outcome of a single game. It is fundamentally about the stark, uncomfortable truths that one singular contest mercilessly laid bare. The Bengals, spearheaded by a quarterback the Browns so casually dismissed, proceeded to utterly embarrass them in a manner that mere statistics can never adequately capture. The glaring disparity in composure, confidence, and decisive leadership between the two teams was blindingly obvious. Flacco, with an almost uncanny mastery, looked as if he had been seamlessly running that Bengals offense for years, while the Browns, conversely, presented the disheartening spectacle of a poorly coordinated group project where not a single participant bothered to do the assigned reading. You simply cannot fabricate this level of ironic mismanagement. Cleveland inexplicably trades away Joe Flacco, then watches him systematically dismantle a division rival, only to spend the subsequent 48 hours transparently pretending this colossal blunder is an integral component of some elusive long-term rebuild plan. The Browns' quarterback room has, with almost farcical regularity, experienced more personnel turnover than a perpetually bustling bakery, and while the exasperated fans are collectively losing their minds, Kevin Stefanski sits there, attempting to rationalize it all with the strained demeanor of a man trying to explain a disastrous group text gone horribly wrong. Every time he opens his mouth, it feels less like a coaching explanation and more like a post-game TED Talk on the intricate art of squandering talent. The most galling aspect, he stubbornly insists, against all compelling evidence, that the system works. Indeed, that seems to be the Browns' unofficial motto, trust the process. The profound recurring problem, however, is that the process persistently, almost perversely, continues to trust the demonstrably wrong people.
AB makes those decisions. I trust AB. We talk about every decision we make. They wanted Joe. They made the phone call. Obviously, it gives Joe an opportunity to go play again. I trust in obviously it's a young room, but I believe in those guys that they're all working very hard. Obviously, Bailey's the elder statesman right now, but Sean's in there, to provide great insight to the young guy. And, I trust in Coach Musgrave, Coach Reese. First, I'd tell you is the Joe trade took us by surprise. That was not something that we saw coming. They called us, and that's happened.
The fan base is utterly exhausted. They have witnessed this demoralizing cinematic narrative countless times before, and the conclusion is invariably identical. Soul-crushing heartbreak, a fresh deluge of darkly humorous memes, and press conferences that invariably sound like thinly veiled apologies, artfully disguised as unwavering optimism. The long-suffering Cleveland faithful unequivocally deserve a substantial refund for the cumulative emotional damages endured. One can almost vividly picture them convening in a desolate church basement, solemnly forming a support group. Hi, my name's Dave. One might begin, and I believed in Kevin Stefanski because, with a bewildering consistency, Cleveland invariably discovers a novel method to engineer its own self-destruction, and this time, the catalyst for their implosion came courtesy of a man they had contemptuously dismissed as utterly washed. Flacco, meanwhile, is simply out there, vibing with an almost zen-like tranquility. He is effortlessly orchestrating broken plays that, with a touch of magic, somehow metamorphose into electrifying highlight reel moments. He is audibly laughing about his coach's distinct accent. He is forging an almost telepathic connection with his receivers, as if they have been inseparable teammates since their formative high school years. He is, in essence, playing the game precisely the way it's supposed to be played. Meanwhile, the Browns are desperately attempting to reinvent the proverbial wheel, but their version is inexplicably square and constructed entirely from fragile papier-mâché. Now a new wave of visceral frustration is redirecting itself towards the ownership. Jimmy Haslam, the enigmatic figure who seems to amass head coaches with the same casual frequency as collecting baseball cards, is once again squarely in the firing line of public discontent.
Just blame Andrew Berry. How dare I just blame Kevin Stefanski? No, it's all there for you. Daryl, so what did you think watching last night's game?
Well, I think it's certainly an indictment of the state of affairs with the Browns right now, because we had all assumed that Joe Flacco was washed up and he couldn't do it anymore. And then he goes out and does that on national television, beats the Pittsburgh Steelers. And we certainly now understand why Mike Tomlin was furious that Andrew Berry basically gave Joe Flacco to the Cincinnati Bengals. But the Browns organization looks like a bunch of stooges this morning, which they are.
People are now openly asserting that he prioritizes grandiose stadium expansions over the meticulous, fundamental construction of a competitive roster. They are vehemently labeling the entire franchise a joke, and frankly, that particular assessment is being exceptionally polite. Because at this precise moment, Cleveland's football operation strikingly resembles a disheveled circus, and emphatically not the enjoyable kind. This is the grim spectacle featuring decrepit, broken rides, visibly despondent clowns, and a perpetually malfunctioning popcorn machine that inexplicably keeps catching fire. Every astute analyst on television is echoing the exact same bewildered sentiment. How did this catastrophic situation unfold? How does a franchise ostensibly so loaded with raw talent persistently trip over its own shoelaces with such spectacular ineptitude? And perhaps most painfully, how does the very guy they unceremoniously traded away look demonstrably more competent and strategically astute than every single player they chose to retain? The answer, upon closer scrutiny, is tragically simple. It boils down to fundamentally bad leadership. His command of the offense appeared utterly effortless, a testament to his innate ability. You could clearly discern it in his eyes. The man exuded an unshakable calmness, an unwavering confidence, and was unequivocally relishing the profound opportunity to prove every single detractor wrong. That kind of magnetic, positive energy is infectious. His teammates were visibly feeding off it. The sideline was absolutely electric with renewed vigor. And then across the field, you had the Browns stiff, profoundly disconnected, and visibly consumed by frustration. One could almost audibly hear the internal screaming from their ranks. Why can't we emulate that? The contrast was stark, damning, and profoundly illuminating.
Andrew Berry trade Joe Flacco to force Kevin Stefanski to move Shedeur up the depth chart. Now, obviously, turning a 6th-round pick into a 5th-round pick was the result of that deal, and that's cool. That's great. That's a good outcome. But was there also another benefit of the trade from Andrew Berry's perspective? So that strategy, that tactic, if the coach of the team, and this was the Oakland Athletics at the time, the baseball team, but this happened before. If the coach of the team is unwilling to play a player that you, meaning you, Paul DePodesta, or the GM, the front office, whatever.
The truth, a bitter pill, undeniably stings. Cleveland has, for years, been notoriously overcomplicating the fundamental game of football. They relentlessly chase after overtly fancy schemes, fetishize shiny, often abstract analytics, and embrace every next-gen buzzword imaginable, mistaking complexity for competency. But at its core, football isn't about convoluted algorithms. It is profoundly about raw instincts, decisive leadership, and flawless execution. execution. Flacco, with a surgeon's precision, reminded them of this stark reality in the most excruciatingly painful way possible. And then, in the aftermath of the game, he allowed himself a moment of genuine reflection, speaking tenderly about his family, his children, and the invaluable lessons gleaned from a lifetime of perseverance. Meanwhile, Stefanski is likely somewhere secluded, desperately attempting to explain to ownership why his ostensibly elite offensive strategy consistently struggles to generate more than 17 points. One could almost feel the universe itself audibly chuckling at the profound irony. But Cleveland? They initially acted as if they had merely traded away a decrepit lawn chair. Now the bitter joke is undeniably on them. The media landscape in Cleveland is currently in full-blown meltdown mode. Radio hosts are, quite literally, foaming at the mouth with indignation. Distraught fans are symbolically throwing jerseys in despair, and social media resembles a collective therapy session that has spiraled catastrophically out of control. The pervasive anger isn't solely about the sting of defeat. It is more acutely about the profoundly humiliating manner in which they lost, because nothing inflicts a deeper wound than being publicly undeniably exposed by the glaring consequences of your own colossal mistake.
People in the room look like they're the dumbest. Kevin Stefanski is going to have to answer for why that happened last night, and we're stuck watching a team that can't score more than 17 points in a game. With him calling plays on the sideline, putting game plans together. Andrew Berry needs to get his butt front and center and start answering some questions. I've never heard of a GM being completely inaccessible after trading a week 1 starting quarterback and also trading your
The front office maintains a conspicuous, almost comical, silence. A hilarious irony given that these are the very same individuals who absolutely relish pontificating during draft week about their grand vision for the future, where one might pointedly ask, is that purported vision now? Likely cowering in a broom closet somewhere, avoiding scrutiny. Andrew Berry is ostensibly positioned as the meticulous architect of this beleaguered team, but by all empirical evidence, the blueprints he's working from appear to be demonstrably upside down. If he isn't exceedingly cautious, his job security might soon find itself precariously balanced on the very same chopping block as Stefanski's. Because fans, crucially, are not unintelligent, they keenly understand that the general manager is responsible for buying the groceries, and if the resulting meal tastes unequivocally terrible, one cannot simply absolve the chef of all blame. And now that narrative has firmly taken root. If one goes, both go. A 2-for-1 clearance sale in the coaching and front office departments seems increasingly inevitable. The Browns have, with a bewildering level of strategic ineptitude, somehow transformed a single quarterback trade into a full-blown organizational crisis of epic proportions. It is, truly, a form of poetic justice. The franchise, notorious for its perpetual quarterback chaos, finds itself utterly humbled by the one guy they dismissed without a second thought, the very individual they effortlessly cast aside. The football gods, it seems, possess an undeniably wicked, almost sadistic sense of humor. No convoluted gimmicks, no crippling overthinking, just pure unadulterated football. The man even casually joked about how a significant portion of their successful plays originated from blatant miscommunications, and yet somehow those were precisely the ones that worked with devastating effectiveness. You truly cannot fabricate such bizarre narratives. Cleveland, meanwhile, is rigorously running full practices and meticulously detailed play installs, while Flacco is out there, seemingly freelancing with the improvisational freedom of backyard football. And against all odds, he is still unequivocally winning.
Playing a player that you want the coach to play, then you simply trade away whoever he is playing, and you leave the coach with no choice but to play the player that you want. They did this in Oakland. Case in point in this situation with the Browns, Joe Flacco and Shedeur Sanders. So Dillon Gabriel had already been named the starter, obviously ahead of the Minnesota game in London last week. And if we go back, we remember that there have been reports that Dillon Gabriel in the draft was Kevin Stefanski's pick. He was that was Kevin's guy.
That, precisely, is the insidious kind of revelation that haunts coaches, stealing their sleep and gnawing at their strategic confidence. And make no mistake, the locker room intrinsically feels players, crucially, are not unintelligent. They possess an innate awareness when something is fundamentally broken within the organizational structure. They can discern with crystal clarity who is genuinely prepared and who is merely performing an elaborate charade of competence. You can viscerally sense when the energy is profoundly profoundly off-kilter, and right now, the Browns locker room feels less like a cohesive unit and more like a precariously ticking time bomb. Because once that foundational trust in the coaching staff erodes, everything inevitably begins to unravel. The seasoned veterans start subtly checking out, their engagement waning. The younger, more impressionable players begin experimenting with ill-advised improvisation, and soon you're left with an entire team aggressively freelancing, while your beleaguered head coach stands helplessly on the sideline, clutching a clipboard as if it were a mere participation trophy, utterly devoid of authority. And that, more than any singular loss, is the indelible part that will inevitably linger. This isn't merely another bad loss. It is a profound, festering scar upon the collective psyche of the franchise. Another weary round of hollow buzzwords will undoubtedly be trotted out: execution, focus, taking it one game at a time, the same broken record playing on an endless disheartening loop, while the long-suffering fans slowly but surely lose their last vestiges of faith. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco will continue to do what he does best, effortlessly proving his detractors wrong without even appearing to exert significant effort. The man is preternaturally calm, profoundly grounded, and unequivocally having the time of his life, watching everyone else around him systematically lose their minds. It is, in its own darkly ironic way, truly beautiful.
You know, to be honest, it was shocking to me. Andrew Berry must be a lot smarter than me or us. Because it doesn't make sense to me to trade a quarterback that you think enough of to make your opening day starter to a division opponent that's hurting in that area. But that's just my personal feeling.
Because ultimately, this compelling story transcends the simplistic narrative of one exceptional quarterback merely lighting up a former team. It is, at its profound core, a powerful testament to the immutable forces of karma, an eloquent demonstration of the football gods meticulously rewarding resilience and mercilessly punishing unbridled arrogance. Cleveland, in its myopic hubris, genuinely believed they had definitively closed the chapter on Joe Flacco. It turns out, with a resounding clarity, that Joe Flacco was far from finished with them. He made a dramatic return, proceeded to deliver an undeniable masterclass in quarterbacking, and left the entire organization profoundly questioning its very existence and strategic direction. And that, precisely, is the insidious beauty of football. Sometimes the most devastating, impactful hits do not occur amidst the bone-jarring collisions on the field. They happen, instead, in the sterile confines of the boardroom, when the ostensibly powerful people in charge are forced to confront the mortifying realization that the very guy they cavalierly gave up on has just rendered them look like incompetent amateurs on national television. So, here is the undeniable, critical takeaway. Perhaps, just perhaps, next time around, Cleveland should exercise a modicum more foresight and strategic deliberation before blithely giving away proven competence at a steep discount. Because Joe Flacco didn't merely beat them on the scoreboard, he utterly exposed them, laying bare their deep-seated flaws for all the world to see. He emerged from the contest with a decisive win, an understated smirk playing on his lips, and the profound intrinsic satisfaction of knowing he had, once again, systematically transformed his fervent doubters into reluctant believers. And somewhere in the desolate distance, you can almost distinctly hear the long-suffering Cleveland fans chanting the same haunting, familiar words they have uttered for decades. Maybe next year. Maybe, but certainly not, one might add with a heavy sigh, if they persist in making Joe Flacco look like the prophetic ghost of football past, returning to expose their repeated follies.